Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us today. Please be seated for our special in the middle of summer council meeting. And it's nice to see everybody. I just ask everyone, I trust you had a moment to read our acknowledgement to our First Nations friends and neighbors and admire the beautiful work. Excuse me. Thank you. Just before we go on to what we're here about today, there's been a lot of discussion in the community about a potential sale of property in out on Park Lane. And I just want the community to understand and know that the members of council have heard the concerns loud and clear, and we are working on a very positive solution to this issue. And I'm not at liberty to go into any details today. It will come back in September, but I think those that are concerned should probably enjoy the rest of the summer and just have faith that the right things will happen. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Seconded, Councillor Gambioli. Seconded. Question, all in favor. Contrary, carried. The next item is in response to the province of British Columbia's Bill 44, and our staff have presented for council's consideration a number of zoning bylaw amendments which facilitate the, I'm going to call it, demands of the provincial government. We've had this before us on a number of occasions, and council has fairly firmly said, no, we're not going to pass this. We recently received, or I on behalf of council received a letter from the minister saying, do it, or I'm simply going to do it. So I don't think this is a particularly democratic way to run either a province. You might have heard I was on CBC this morning, again, asking the Minister of Housing to meet with us. I have sent a lot of requests to him, asking him to consider the things that West Vancouver are doing to address a housing needs situation. We all appreciate there is a need to address housing, but we don't think that the solutions necessarily get drawn on a desk in Victoria. We have recently passed, subject to final reading, the Cypress Village, which is going to provide long-term, well-thought-out, intelligent land use with a variety of housing types. We recently unanimously approved the Ambleside Local Area Plan amendments, which allows for modest and reasonable infill in our principal area here in Ambleside. Last year, this council approved a housing development at Clyde and Taylor Way that would have provided some 200 plus small housing units that would provide more affordable housing for people who work in this community. The owner of the property went all the way through to building permits and then withdrew those permits. They're not going to proceed with their development. That is nothing that this council can do. We did everything we could do to facilitate the zoning, the prompt and efficient passage of the building permits so they could begin construction. It's not our place. We're not building the buildings. We don't have the money to do that. And so whether it was because the federal government changed the capital gains tax or because of the cost of construction or the cost of borrowing, we don't know that. We don't know why something that we approved is not proceeding. And yet the minister says we are not doing our part. And so I say to you, Mr. Minister, please meet with us. Please look at solutions that will work in our community. So with that, I know that each of my colleagues on council have thought a great deal about this, and I also know that Councillor Lambert wants to join us. He's recently had surgery, and Ms. Dallas is Mr. Lambert, is Councillor Lambert able to join us? There he is.
Councillor Lambert and Councillor Snyder are joining us electronically.
Great. Now, Councillor Snyder is in a remote part of the world right now and is going to join us by satellite phone, I believe. This is a complete first. Do we know if he is online or?
It's showing that we have a user calling in, but he has not made himself known. So if Councillor Snyder, if you're there, please let us know.
Councillor Snyder, can you hear us? Councillor Snyder, let us know if you can hear us. Actually, I think I'm supposed to say over and out. Because he's on a satellite phone. Such technology.
There may be a 2-minute delay. 2 minutes.
Well, okay, perhaps while we wait for him, I think my colleagues on council would probably like to say a word or two, and if anybody wants to light up their microphone, they can, or not. Okay, does someone wish to make the motions before us?
Right. Sure. So I will, I'll make the first motion. And then I'll speak to it. So I'll recommend that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5351, 2024 be read a first time.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Lambert seconded. I'm just wondering, Ms. Dallas, could we have all of the motions in one? Could Councillor Gambioli, so that we're not speaking to 5 different items?
There is a provision that requires that bylaws be
Individual? Okay.
So
Okay, I'm going to hope that we could all speak how we feel about this to the first bylaw, and then
Well, they're all the same, so.
they're all
They're all
the
the
same.
same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Okay,
same.
would the mover or seconder like to speak first?
Okay, sure. I'll speak about my thoughts. So we've had this in front of us. We had this in front of us for the first time in May 27th, but I wasn't at the meeting. So the media has disclosed that the vote was unanimous, but that's because I wasn't here. So I will say that if I had been here, I would have voted in favor. And by making this motion, I will vote in favor tonight. Today, it's usually tonight. The mayor spoke about the fact that we've approved some units and some density. However, we've actually only approved 50 units that are getting hopefully built over the next couple of years, and we're going to be way off our targets. So it's not just the fault of this current council. I've actually been on this council for, it'll be 13 years quite soon, and quite frankly, I don't think we've been doing enough for the whole time I've been on this council. So I'm in favor of moving forward with this, and I think that also what's been a little bit misleading for most people is that these zoning changes actually only apply to less than 3% of the total number of lots in West Vancouver. So originally it was 1.6% of lots, about 150 or 200 lots. And now that the province has had an opportunity to look more closely, they've raised that number to 381, which is, again, still only 2.8% of the total number of lots in the municipality. So, in other words, 97.2% of the lots remain unchanged in their zoning. So, I just want to make that clear because people are lighting their hair on fire over this, but it's really a very tiny percentage of the total lots in our community, and they are all for one reason or other, related to areas that, for infrastructure and transit purposes, are more amenable to higher density. So our choice really is to consider this zoning and to vote for it, or to risk unknown consequences in the near future, where the province could allow even more density than is being proposed here if we say no. And other changes, including citing the size, the location, and the type of housing required to be permitted. And I think that gives us even less control. Well, it certainly gives us less control than if we simply pass the zoning bylaw that our staff are recommending today. So I think that we know we are unique here in our municipality. It's a beautiful place to be, but we're not that special. We're not more special than every other municipality in the province, and I think we need to do our part, and we haven't been doing our part for a long time. So I am appreciative, actually, that the province has sent us essentially this ultimatum, and I support it. And those who vote no again today should be very concerned for the population of residents and the unknown consequences that vote could provide.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Councillor Lambert is the seconder of the motion. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Sager. Yes, but just very briefly. I'm also going to, obviously, as a seconder, support this proposed zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw, but I do so reluctantly. There's no point in going over the arguments that have been in the press since this Bill 44 and associated bills have come out from the province. There's been arguments that the province has overreached its role really in land use, which has principally been the domain of the municipalities up until now. But of course, we are creatures of the province, so the province can tell us what to do. And as we sit here contemplating this zoning bylaw, that's exactly what they're doing. So I can reconcile myself to accepting this or this proposed amendment bylaw, because after careful study of it, I think that the impacts on West Van are inconsequential, really. They don't have the broad impacts that they might have on other municipalities that have restrictive single-family zones where 4 and 6 unit developments can be developed on individual properties. We don't have that. Our single-family zones have allowed or do allow suites and coach houses on the properties, and aren't technically classified as restrictive zones for the purposes of this bylaw, and the province seems to have acknowledged that. So the biggest threat in my mind to the district with the application of this bylaw was having a much more than gentle density, sort of a rough densification of our single-family neighborhoods, and potentially sort of character-busting developments throughout West Van, and we're not going to have that. So I'm relieved that's the case, that the province appears to acknowledge that, and that the very limited number of applications that they are asking us to consider are, again, in my mind, inconsequential. So I'm I'm agreeable to the amendment bylaws as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. I'm just going to check in from time to time here to see if Councillor Snyder has joined us. Haven't heard from him. Thank you. Members of council, anyone else wish to address this matter? Councillor Watt.
Yeah, I'll dive in there. First, I want to comment on a couple of Councillor Gambioli's remarks. the suggestion that we think we're special. It should be pointed out that 10 years ago, the council of the day approved coach houses on almost all of the properties in West Vancouver, and it was 2019 or 2020 that the prior council approved secondary suites and coach houses on almost all of the lots, which is why we are dealing with so few. So we were actually ahead of the province in recognizing that we require this kind of housing. But I'm looking at this differently, and I'm not going to support it. We're the only NDP province in the country, and over the course of the last 7 years, it's almost like we've developed Stockholm Syndrome. We're captive to a bloated provincial bureaucracy that's doubled the provincial debt and given Vancouver the illustrious title of fentanyl capital of the world. And our infrastructure and healthcare system are broken. TransLink is threatening to cut service by the end of next year by 50%, and still the NDP are facilitating the feds in their quest to add further strain on the region. In the first quarter of this year, 40,271 people immigrated to British Columbia, and that's an increase of 6.5% over 2023. We're still digging a hole, and we can't seem to build our way out of it. So instead of fixing the economy, which would facilitate new builds, because housing starts, I believe, are down 55%, and that's not just in West Vancouver. And so instead of that, they might be better to go and lobby Ottawa with the other premiers and housing ministers, because that is the source of the problem. We just can't keep up. And we've fallen victim to a power imbalance at play between the feds and the provinces. So instead of rolling over, our premier should be, again, as I said, lobbying with the other provinces. And there's no fiscal responsibility. We have an authoritarian government that is ignoring basic planning principles in a reckless effort to please a prime minister who's hell-bent on beating the Canadian economy further into the ground. It would be better to stand up. And the private sector in British Columbia, they've stagnated in a weak economy with crippling bureaucracy that has wrapped industry in red tape. This was the land of promise. We are resource rich, but you wouldn't know it. We've had, I believe this government has increased 11,000 new jobs in government, which absolutely eclipses all the investment in this province. So it's no wonder housing starts are down. And in the middle of all this, they came up with a Band-Aid solution to solve the housing crisis. Bill 44, painting a brushstroke across the province. Do they want homogenous housing, in virtually every municipality? It's madness. And further to that, West Van is a transportation choke point, and we're in a chokehold by the province. Vancouver has grown 4.5 times from the 600,000 that were here in 1957 when the second crossing was built. That's like 67 years ago, and nothing has changed. So we keep hearing that, when you build the density, we will bring the infrastructure. Well, where is it? 67 years have gone by. So I can't support it, and I'll be incredibly disappointed if this council votes through Bill 44. It's not a solution, but there is a solution on October 19th.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Boy, I would think she's running for public office. Councillor Cassidy.
Well,
a different public office.
Sorry.
I'm in public office.
You are in
Yes,
public office.
Yes.
A different public office.
Well, I actually wasn't going to speak on this because, believe it or not, my mind is completely open on the subject. And this is a tough one. As to Councillor Lambert's point, it's really not going to make a major difference in this community. But my issue is, and I do recognize that we are a child of the province, but my issue is I think that we are being singled out simply for political posturing ahead of the October 19th election. They know they have nothing to lose in West Vancouver. An NDP government has never given us anything, and they're never going to give us anything. They have simply no clue as to the traffic that goes across our upper levels highway coming from Pemberton, Whistler, Squamish. They have no idea that we cannot get off this seeming island because of the Second Narrows Bridge and the Lionsgate Bridge. And for the entire time I have lived in this community, which has been since I was a child, there has been the promise of a bridge. Well, I'll probably be dead before that bridge is ever realized. They're not giving us anything. Our hospitals are essentially, Lionsgate Hospital is also being choked to death. We're getting nothing, and yet they want something from us because of political posturing, and I resent that. I do know that Mayor Sager has said that he has tried many times to meet with the minister, and I know that to be a fact. I think when the minister was interviewed by a member of the media, he said, well, actually, he had met with Mayor Sager. I think it was last year, he said. Well, I recollect that last year was probably 5 or 10 minutes at best in advance of a meeting at the UBCM. Well, not good enough. So the minister has highlighted West Vancouver because of the quality of the education in this community, and that everyone is entitled to a quality of education, and I completely agree with him. So when you take $45 million worth of tax, worth of school tax, out of this community, should you not be spending that money throughout this province to give everyone equal opportunity to a quality of education? Well, the answer apparently is no, because that has gone into general revenue. So one of the things, and I'm a big believer in education, education will take you where you want to go in this life if you work hard enough. And one of the things I'd like to say to all of those teachers that I had as I was growing up, they said, have an opinion and stand by your opinion, stand by your point of view. So it's very easy to say that this is just a matter of principle. But how many wars through the decades, through the centuries, have been started on a matter of principle? I think you need to stand up for principle in this world, and I'm going to stand up and not accept what they are having to say. They're doing this in advance of October the 19th to garner publicity, to garner support throughout this province from all of those communities who are supportive of the NDP. But they need to ask themselves, why is all this money that you are taking out of these various communities that you dub the school tax, why are you putting it into general revenue? Why are you pointing the finger at communities and asking them to densify when the real problem is the unprecedented immigration coming into this country? It is unprecedented, and I am an immigrant. I came here with my family as a child, so I am very, very respectful of everything this country has to offer, and I will not see our people be dictated to and put down the drain by the massive irrational spending and unprecedented immigration. It's time people stood up and took a position, and if this is my little hill to die on, I'll die on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy.
Mayor Sager, may
yes.
I interrupt? Just wanted to let you know that Councillor Snyder has joined us, and he is online.
Councillor Snyder, wherever you are in this magical world on this satellite phone, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And just, if I may, because we might lose you, would you like to address council on this issue? Over and out.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sager. So I have to agree with everything that Mr. Cassidy says, and I know that the flavor of council and the attitudes that are being maintained in regards to this whole matter are obviously a pretty significant issue for the community. I, on the other hand, although I completely support and agree with the position of Councillor Cassidy, will be voting in favor of this. I believe that, my duty to the district is most definitely more important than my political view on this matter, and I think that from that perspective, I will be voting in favor of the proposal and the amendment as presented. So I will await the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. Councillor Thompson.
Well, thank you. I've been holding off my comments because to this very syllable, I'm in this moral dilemma of where to go, because it seems like the agreeable thing to do is to get in the sandbox and play. But when you talk about why we should adopt this thing, number one, it's inconsequential. Number two, the fear of consequences. And the reality is, it's an ineffective bill. And that's what I really grapple with. And, as long as I've been on council, I've kind of promised myself I will vote for things that actually make a difference. None of this virtue signaling to say, oh, we'll adopt it just because it sounds great or because we're being good partners. Does this actually work to create more housing, create more affordability in our community? It just doesn't. And we've heard even from the people that support it, they don't agree with what it's trying to do. We're just falling in line as the province has asked us to. And, our duty is to our community and to our province as we're representing our communities, right? When the province is asking us to do these things. And I'm actually really concerned about the consequences. And in fact, every municipality that has adopted it, the mayors have spoken out to say, we fear the consequences of what this is going to do, whether it's infrastructure or parking or whatever their concerns are, the cost. And then we don't believe it's actually going to make a difference in our community. The NDP had proposed a short-term rental bill earlier this year, and just this week we're hearing about how it's failing its communities. Places like Kelowna and Parksville, their tourism is down 30, 40, 50% because of the way they've rolled out this bill in every municipality. It's really hurting some of those tourist destinations. This week, actually, I've been listening to Mr. Davidoff from UBC, who often consults and advises the province on the way to craft their policy. He's saying they're not achieving affordability, not even close to the 20% they promised. So I have to ask myself, why are we considering adopting a bill and supporting this type of dictatorship through the province when it just isn't effective? What are we doing here? We've talked about the various developments we've supported. In fact, our Director of Planning has informed us that this council has approved everything that's come its way, from taking 10 single-family dwellings and turn those into 36-unit lots, and a variety of other things. And as Mayor Sager mentioned, the 211-unit product. But we're doing what's within our power. And I'm going to go back, because so much has been said about this, and I don't want to repeat it. But to me, it's really important that we plan our communities. And if we don't take the time to consider what's effective development with that neighborhood consideration, we're going to actually cause a lot of problems. And you go back to doing our part. And I've heard this on the radio this morning even, I think, follow-up from the mayor's conversation with Gloria Mancarino this morning. Another interview happened in Collins, and there was a lot of talk about doing our part, like why should West Van excuse himself? Well, $88 million come out of this community every year for school taxes, and 45 of that is additional school tax. Additional school tax does not go to the schools. It's a wealth tax. And they could be using that money to build in places that we can truly create affordability. Oddly enough, I've run into 2 or 3 people this year, including having family up in Prince George. And I think I've mentioned publicly before that at the Housing Summit, Prince George mentioned 10 years ago, they invested millions of dollars to develop the infrastructure so that they could grow their population to 100,000. They still haven't achieved that. And yet you've got great paying jobs. And what I've heard just this week, is various young families that are moving up there, and they're able to, if they're renting, they live in a nice home where they have the opportunity to buy a home. And it just seems like we need to zoom back out and really look at how to deal with immigration in our province in a way that doesn't overburden what already is burdened, and find real solutions. And there's so much to say, but I just have to question myself, why adopt a policy that is ineffective?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Well, I couldn't agree more strongly with with virtually all of the comments made by my colleagues around this table. And I find this to be the most upsetting issue because it really comes down to our risk tolerance. The minister has said, we either pass something or he's going to come in and do it. And we know that the bylaws before us will impact a very, very small number of homes, properties in our community. It means that we have control, and it makes me sick to say, I don't have the risk for the whole community to not accept this recommendation. I'm going to be on Global tomorrow morning at 7, and I'm going to continue to say to the minister, why won't you meet with us? Why won't you look at what we are doing to really constructively provide housing? It makes me ill because I completely agree with my colleagues. But I've got to call a question. Question's been called. All those in favor? Councillor Snyder, you've already indicated, are you still with us?
It looks like Councillor Snyder dropped off.
Well, now this is going to be interesting.
I can try to contact him directly. Okay.
Please do.
Are you voting against this?
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
As we sit on the cusp of...
Councillor Snyder.
Yes. As we sit on the cusp, if we get Councillor Snyder back on, I'm getting a sense of where we're going. And I have to say, what gives me pause more than anything in this time, are we really in this day and age where we have to fear our government? Mm-hmm. And this is one area that they've talked about taking away our rights as a municipality, as citizens. It gives me great pause. And I just have to say, in a lighter note, this morning, thinking about this and the child of the province notion, and I think, if any of you, which I think many of you in this room have had and raised children, they're born with love, and you pour all this development into them so they become independent, responsible beings. And, as as a parent, you learn to respect that they are our future, and they have the wisdom to govern their actions into the future.
So, Councillor Thompson, are you voting for or against this legislation?
I'll tell you in the vote.
Well, here's the dilemma, ladies and gentlemen. I think most of us are really very strongly opposed to what the province and how they are doing this. It does come down to a risk tolerance level, and we all have to just live with whatever that decision is. If I call the question right now without Councillor Snyder, then it may be a tied vote, and that way it fails, and we can all go and enjoy our summer. Councillor Watt.
I just feel like we're preparing ourselves, should Councillor Snyder get back on the line, to walk off the cliff like lemmings. It's a David and Goliath.
It is.
We've been pushed in a corner, and we're being bullied. And what creates a bully? A lack of power. And where does the lack of power that they're feeling coming from? Ottawa. So go to Ottawa and leave the municipalities alone to deal with the sound planning practices that make sense for them, densifying where it makes sense, and not seeking to make every property in this province look the same.
I think it's a little ironic as well. we asked the ministry for an extension for our time to consider this matter, so we wouldn't have to do it in August, knowing that we would have council members away. Do we have Councillor Snyder?
It looks like he has just gotten back on the line here. It's touch and go. We'll just wait for him to unmute. Hello, Councillor Snyder.
Hello. Hello.
No.
The question's been called. All those in favor?
The question's been called. In favor.
Contrary? Motion carries. Okay, and could we move the next ones quickly before we lose Councillor Snyder?
Recommend that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5351, 2024 be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Lambert again. Thank you. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Again, Councillor Gambioli.
And that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5351, 2024 be read a third time.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lambert. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Finally.
And recommend that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5351, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lambert. Question, all in favor? Contrary. By the way, ladies and
In
gentlemen.
favor.
Yeah. We were not allowed by legislation to even consult or have a public hearing on this matter. The legislation does not permit it. I find that to be a huge fundamental error in all of this. Is there any new business? Hearing none. Consent agenda items. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items? As written. Thank you. Councillor Gambioli. Councillor Watt seconding. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Are there any public questions or comments this afternoon?
There are 4.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Who would like to address council?
First, we have Lawrence Rolston.
Mr. Wilston, and I do first apologize, sir. When you were here before, I was very tired and grumpy, and I was a little short with you, which is not my style. I apologize.
I understand. You folks have got a lot on your mind. And Mr. Mayor, we're very hopeful that we can take your words on the 30th access matter at face value. But given that your proposed solution is still shrouded in secrecy, we would like to put the whole situation on the public record. Your rationale for taking away that access, that there are other paths, is tone deaf, to put it bluntly. The path 170 meters east consists of 91 very steep steps to a beach that doesn't compare with 30th. The path to the west is 310 meters away. It leads to a piece of rock with a storm drain outlet. The access at 29th is half a kilometer away. It's worth preserving access at 30th. By all means, sell the lot at 3000 Park Lane. It's a lovely lot. It's the second largest lot on Park Lane. The difference in price to be gained by taking away the public access is small in relation to the long-term value of this public amenity. Putting this in a perspective, the difference in price is about the same as the amount paid to settle the harassment issue. Now, let's look at the way this is being handled. Selling a trail and waterfront access is diametrically opposed to the official community plan. The plan calls for the acquisition of further trails and waterfront access. Selling that waterfront access is in contravention of a principle in the Land Titles Act that specifies access to the waterfront every 200 meters. It's clear that taking away this access will violate that principle. Instead of sneaking around that law, let's honor the longstanding principle of maintaining waterfront access every 200 meters or less. And this would be in contravention of the Community Charter and the Local Government Act. Those documents make it very clear that when dedicated property such as this public access, is to be repurposed and sold, there are formal procedures to be followed. There was no public tender as required by the Charter. Other provisions include that the details of the deal be disclosed, that the buyer be disclosed. Instead, the sale is being handled through secret negotiations. This council is going against community policies. It's going against legal principles, and it is blatantly contravening the community charter. All of this for the benefit of one or a few wealthy individuals. A legal coalition is coming together, determined to fight this blatant attempt at flouting the rules. Community outrage is growing. We are not going to be bullied.
Thank you very much, sir. Just for you might know, sir, I've had the great honor of serving in our community for over 4 decades. And if you go back in the record, and I'm actually going to find it because I was very instrumental in putting up the first bollards at every beach access. And there's one still remaining at the foot of 26th. There was no one who has fought harder for public beach access, and I could not feel more strongly that we maintain public access to our foreshore. We also finalize our 40-year vision of creating a beautiful, uninterrupted public foreshore in Ambleside. And yes, I may sometimes get emotional about that because I've taken a lot of scars during my course of public service. Did you know when I ran for mayor in the first go-round back in the 90s, there was someone who ran against me because they didn't think we should be buying the homes on the waterfront. A waste of taxpayers' money, they said. Back then, we were paying maybe $300,000 for a lot, and we had to be creative to get those lots. But thankfully, over 40 years, people who have sat at this table have been unanimous in finalizing that goal. But sir, I don't want to debate you tonight. I am very optimistic that when this matter comes back in September, you will say, good job. I'm optimistic.
We will say that to the extent that the access at 30th remains intact.
Let me tell you, this council, sir, has heard you loud and clear and the community on this issue. And I would like to clarify one thing. Ms. Dallas, do you have a statement about the process? Because there has been some very unfair comments made about the following of the public process. Ms. Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. The district has received a significant volume of correspondence regarding the road closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw number 5342/2024 for the road closure, or for the road to be closed adjacent to 3000 Park Lane. To clarify and address misinformation around the legislative process for the road closure, I offer the following information. The community charter requires that for permanent road closure and removal of highway dedication, section 40 of the community charter, that before council may adopt a bylaw for such closure, it must give notice in accordance with section 94.1 of the charter, then must be published in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks and provide an opportunity for persons who consider they are affected by the bylaw to make representations to council. The notice of the road closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw was published in the July 10th and 17th editions of the North Shore News and posted to the district website. Hard copy of the bylaw, staff report, and notice were also available for public inspection at Municipal Hall as of July 10. At the July 22nd regular council meeting, there was an opportunity for public input on the proposed bylaw. At that time, 6 written submissions and 4 verbal submissions were received. The signage that was posted at the subject site is not a requirement of public notice as contained in the community charter. The sign was placed at the site as an additional communication opportunity and was not, the district was not obligated to install the signage. Just to clarify the point regarding the notice of disposition in accordance with section 26 of the charter, that will happen once the bylaw has been considered for adoption. And so it's still outstanding, and we intend to do that.
Sir, again, Sir, we can't get into debate on this. But what I want you, sir, with the greatest of respect, because you might actually find that the members of council here agree. And I would ask you, sir, to hold judgment until September and see if we are able to successfully do what this council is determined to do, and that's increase access and not lose access. The next speaker, please.
That would be Peter Miller.
Mr. Miller. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Well, I hope my comments are going to be proven redundant. Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Peter Miller. I live in the 2600 block of Nelson Avenue. I'm here this afternoon to express my disappointment that the removal of this public right-of-way and beach access is even being contemplated. I use that trail almost every day and have found the charm and delight to be simply a therapeutic experience. So I'd urge you to vote against the proposal. It's wrong in principle, taking public land for private gain, but more alarming to me was that it was wrong in the manner in which it was expected to be executed. Please do not approve this sale. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And may I just ask one question, because I'm encouraged by the number of people who care about this issue, and I hope that all of those people who care about this issue translate that same energy and direction to completing our community's 40-year vision of a public access all the way from 13th to 19th and then the seawall. Because I can tell you, I remember it was Mayor Don Lanscale and a very wise council back in 1972 that started that process, and there was enormous community opposition, waste of taxpayers' money, destroying the homeowner's view. So please, sir, when this comes forward, I do hope all of those people that care about this one access care also about a much larger vision. Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker, please.
Sydney Sharp.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Sager and councillors. My name is Sydney Sharp, and I'm lucky enough to live steps away from the Altamont Beach Park public access in the 3200 block of Proctor Avenue. I oppose, in no uncertain terms, the sale of this beloved public amenity to a private buyer. I've lived here for 25 years, and so I feel intimately connected to the shady forest path leading down to the beach that I use for plein air drawing and painting. 2 weeks ago, I had a face-to-face conversation with Mayor Sager, who told me that it's a done deal.
Excuse me, that's not true. I did not say it was a done deal. I said it was subject to final reading. Sorry, let's clarify that.
I did not ever hear that it was subject to a final reading.
I said it was subject to a final reading.
But this is not true, as there is one more vote left to go on it.
That's what I would have obviously
said. And that's what I learned afterwards.
Sorry, I do take exception to that because I'm quite aware that it had to go for a final vote.
All right. I was not made aware of that, so this is why I'm writing this and speaking today. I'll just continue. I've listened to what you've said, but I will continue with what I've written. This suggests that the ink is already dry on a deal done behind closed doors. So 2 weeks ago, we formed a group of local residents to fight this proposal. We created a petition that has captured 957 signatures in 6 days. There are hundreds of comments protesting this maneuver, and our group has also felt it necessary to hire a lawyer. On the public record, our group requested an urgent meeting with Mayor and Council to discuss this issue, but we did not receive a response.
Sorry, how did you make that request?
I wrote to correspondence at westvancouver.ca, which is what I phoned the district, and that's what they told me to do. And then I checked the public record, and I saw my letter on the website.
Yeah. I apologize for that. We are going to try and improve a system. Had you simply called my office, we would have set up a meeting.
Okay, I was never instructed to do that.
Well,
Yeah, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
Mayor Sager. So the way that this has been handled is disturbing to our group. And it feels as though this negotiation is being rushed through at the height of summer when many people are away. So lastly, I would say, please do not sell the Altamont Beach Park public access. If this goes ahead, it will lead to lasting resentment, and it will set a dangerous precedent for the future.
thank you.
Thank you.
We're very grateful for your input. Could I just ask, just so there's absolutely no confusion,
Yeah?
are you in favor or opposed to selling 3,000 Park Lane?
I would have to say that I'm against it. I have
Okay.
another vision for that property, and that vision is probably going to sound ridiculously idealistic. But really what I would love to see happen, because I've lived and looked at that property for so long, and I've watched the difficulties that, everybody experienced by that illegal building being built and then torn down, etc. So here's what I'd like to see. It would be great if 3,000 could turn into a park. If the existing beach access, the sign at the head of that beach access says, "Welcome to Altamont Beach Park," I consider it a park, not a beach access. So I've looked at the sign, that's what I've understood from the sign. Here, I'd like to see the lot just to the east of it become a park, maybe with trees and benches and field grass for reading, and something that everybody could enjoy, instead of what seems to be being proposed that many people are opposed to.
Thank you very much for your input. Yes, sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Can I confirm that your name is Sandra Schumer? Is that right?
No, it's Sydney Sharp.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I just couldn't find the email that you've requested a meeting, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
I can send it to you all when I get home today.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's also on the website.
We do, members of council are extremely grateful for public input. It is best if you actually, I know it's more work, but if you address them to each of us, to our individual emails, and I think somehow that speeds up our correspondence greatly.
I did that in my last couple of emails. I do understand, thank
Yes,
you.
because I have seen your emails, and I'm grateful for your
Okay.
input. Thank you.
Thanks again.
And we have one last person, do we?
We do. Leslie Farner? Farrar.
Sorry, Leslie Forak? Farrar.
Used to be Wood.
Okay. Ferrari without the I. Ooh. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. This is my first time to council, so
Well, welcome.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm a Western resident. I have lived here for 15 years with my 3 sons and my husband. I'm a practicing physiotherapist who works in the heart of West Van, and I live in Eagle Harbor. So I'm not actually a resident in this area, but this issue, I was shocked and haven't done as much as I can to inform myself on this issue before coming to speak to you today. I understand the history, the motivation of the Ambleside project. But I have major concerns with the sale of a public beach access. I would like to briefly address 3 points from the last meeting, which I watched online, based on my experience raising 3 kids in this community. The first was access points to the east and west. And the very nature of our shoreline often does not allow for easy access to the shoreline, even a small distance away. And as such, an access point 200 meters can essentially make that stretch of beach inaccessible, certainly to people with mobility concerns, young families with small children, or elderly. So closing this access point would essentially make a section of beautiful beach private, benefiting only the waterfront owners. Equally disadvantaging working families who don't own waterfront with small children in this community. Second, many access points through West Van already exist, and the examples given were our public parks, Lighthouse Park, etc. And I would just like to highlight, living in those areas, that they're very busy. The parking along the access points are crowded. I avoid Lighthouse Park on many days due to the busyness, and so pushing more people to those areas, not only is it a very different experience, but it increases the volume.
Can I just interrupt on that?
Sure.
Haven't you noticed out in our neighborhood how busy it is these days?
In Lighthouse?
No, in Eagle Harbor.
Lighthouse, I simply avoid. Like, I'm there every day. I know Lighthouse like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
And it's become very popular, and I would say probably more than not local residents are accessing that, which is wonderful, but we equally have to maintain access for our residents to live in the community that we chose. And it was a very large part of us moving to this community 15 years ago was access to water despite not living on the waterfront. The next point was, sorry, just to stay to my notes, that I wanted to highlight that a small pathway local access is very different from large parks. The experience that our residents have with their families and as you've heard today, themselves, therapeutically, growing up as children. And so I would like to emphasize the benefit of small path access. And lastly, my concern is that this sets a precedent. Many times I was told by the waterfront owners I was not allowed on the shoreline, and I always felt very proud and appreciative that I was able to be there. And selling waterfront access will only motivate other residents to ask for the sale of the access point close to their home. $1 million pales in comparison to the public value that beach access gives our residents. So I hope that this will be turned down by our council. I'll leave it at that because I'm getting emotional.
No,
I don't mean to be emotional. I'm actually not emotional. I don't live in this area, but this issue obviously touches a heartstring, and that's why I'm here today.
And I do again want to emphasize that in our community for over 40 years, we have fought to buy, open, and preserve access to the waterfront. And for all the people who have written in, we are grateful for all of the comments, the emails, even the nasty ones, because what it does show is how much we appreciate our waterfront. And so I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us, and please join us in September.
Can I just follow up that I'm concerned that when you say that you are speaking of the development of Ambleside and the purchase of that home, which I am for, but not at the loss of small path access in the 200 meters. I'm thrilled to hear it's in a bylaw somewhere because the shoreline, having used it from various aspects, it's not accessible if you don't have frequent access points. So I hope that when you say that, you do mean maintaining access points frequently along the shoreline of our West Vancouver.
Yes,
shoreline.
I think you'll, all going well, you will be pleased when we reconvene. So I hope you have a great summer, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we don't usually meet in August, but thankfully it's not 11 o'clock at night and I'm not as grumpy. So for all of you for joining us, we thank you very much, and I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Wait, I'm going to make one final call. Is there anyone else who wishes to address council? And hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Gambioli.
How about I do that? I will recommend that the August 12th, 2024 special council meeting be adjourned.
Thank you. Councillor Watt. Have a great holiday on your way. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is closed.